All right, good day everyone. Welcome to this presentation on disaster recovery, specifically designed for businesses operating in Jamaica and the wider Caribbean region. Now, I know that you might be thinking, disaster recovery, that sounds as exciting as watching a paint dry. But stick with me here because what we're going to cover today could be the difference between your business surviving a category 1, 2, 3, and even the category 5 hurricane or becoming another statistic. And trust me, after 17 years in the industry and having lived through multiple hurricane seasons in Jamaica, I've seen firsthand what happens when businesses are prepared and when they are not. But before we dive in, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Raman Kid. I'm a senior solutions architect specializing in data, AI, and machine learning. Now, over the past 17 plus years, I've had the privilege of working with some incredible organizations, starting my career right here in Jamaica at Digicel back in 2008, then Kingston Wharves, followed by roles at TELUS in Canada, Amazon Web Services, and Google Cloud. I hold certifications, including the CISSP for cybersecurity, the Google Cloud Professional Cloud Architect and Data Engineer, AWS Solutions Architect, Cisco CCNP and CCDP, VMware Certified Implementation Expert, Palo Alto Network Security Engineer, and Kubernetes Administrator and Security certifications. Quite a mouthful. Now, why does this matter? It matters because disaster recovery isn't just about backing up files. It's actually about understanding networking, security, cloud infrastructure, and how all these pieces fit together when everything around you is falling apart. Literally. Now, here's what we'll cover in the next 45 to 50 minutes. I hope to not go much longer than that. First, we'll look at the reality. Some eye-opening statistics about why disaster recovery matters, especially for Jamaican businesses. Then, we'll cover the foundation and preparation, pretty much digitization, the famous 3-2-1 backup rule and what to do before, during, and after disaster. We'll explore recovery operations, the cloud architecture. We'll also discuss implementation, which basically covers recovery tiers, testing protocols, and the all-important cost analysis to justify your investment. And finally, you'll leave with a concrete 30-day action plan to get started. Feel free to take notes, and if I was there with you in person, we'll have a Q&A at the end, but feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn for follow-up conversations. Now, the three main assumptions that we'll lay down right now are presented here on the screen. So before we go any further, I need to set some expectations. Everything I'm about to share assumes certain conditions are met, after a disaster. First, power is restored. Whether that's grid power coming back online or you having access to a generator or a battery backup system at your business or home. Without electricity, well, your servers may take quite a long time to come back up and will eventually become very expensive paperweights. The second is you have a device, a working computer, laptop, tablet, or even a smartphone to connect to your recovery systems. Now, of course, this might seem obvious, but after a major hurricane, your office equipment might be underwater, sometimes literally, unfortunately. And third, connectivity, internet connectivity. Some form of access to the internet, whether through your ISP coming back up, online cellular data, satellite link options like Starlink, and so on. And we'll talk more about the respective connectivity options later. Now, here's the reality check, and I need you to really hear this. After a Category 5 hurricane, these assumptions might take days or even weeks to become a reality. JPS doesn't restore power overnight, which we've all seen. Cell towers get damaged, roads become impassable. Now, the goal of this presentation is to help you plan for these dependencies before the storm so that you can recover as soon as possible or as soon as conditions allow. Now, let's go to the reality. Now, let's talk numbers because numbers don't lie. 93%. That's the percentage of companies without a disaster recovery plan. And unfortunately, because they don't have a plan, they go out of business within 1 year of a major disaster. Now think about that. 9 out of 10 businesses gone. $5,600. What exactly is that? That's the average cost per minute of IT downtime. Per minute. Now, if your systems are down for just 1 hour, you're looking at over $300,000 in losses. Our next number here is 140 plus miles per hour. Now, that's the wind speed of a Category 5 hurricane. Winds that can turn your carefully organized filing cabinets into confetti scattered across, in some cases, all 14 parishes. 72 hours. Now, that's the critical window for business continuity after disaster. If you can't get back online within 3 days, your customers start finding alternatives. And we don't want that, right? Your competitors start taking your market share. And let's be real about the situation in Jamaica. We sit right in the Atlantic hurricane belt. From June to November, every single year, we play what I call hurricane roulette. It's not if a major storm will hit, it's sometimes when. Now, where do we start? Now we have all this data, we understand the importance. Where do we start? At the very foundation, digitizing your data. Very, very fundamental and very important. I've walked into businesses after hurricanes and seen filing cabinets turned into soggy messes. Decades of contracts, customer records, financial documents, all destroyed because they only existed on paper. Your first order of business is to categorize your data into priority tiers. Tier 1, these are your critical items. These are your must-haves. Financial records, customer databases, contracts, intellectual property. If you lose these, your business might not recover. Then we go to Tier 2. These are what we will classify as important. These are your operational documents, employee records, vendor agreements. Losing these would hurt, but not fatally, compared to the critical ones. And lastly, we have Tier 3, which we encapsulate under standard. These will include your archives, historical data, marketing materials, that kind of stuff. These are your nice to haves, but you could recreate them if needed. Now, once categorized, digitize everything. Scan those contracts, convert those paper records to PDFs, create digital backups of everything that matters. And here's a beautiful thing about digital data. You can copy it infinitely, store it in multiple locations, and access it from anywhere in the world. Paper can only be in one place at one time. And some would debate it if you were to photocopy them across the world. But you get the idea. Okay, now let's talk about the golden rule of backups. The 3-2-1 rule. Write this down if you remember nothing else from today. 3 copies of your data, 2 different media types, 1 copy offsite. Now, let me break that down. 3 copies means your original data plus 2 backups. Because we all know this. Hard drives fail, servers crash, ransomware attacks happen. 2 different media types means don't just back up your hard drive to another hard drive. Use a mix, right? Maybe a local network attached storage or NAS device and a cloud storage, right? Different technologies have different failure modes. And here's the crucial one for Jamaica. 1 copy offsite. And when I say offsite, I don't mean the other side of Kingston or Montego Bay. I mean outside the Caribbean hurricane zone entirely. Of course, it makes sense. If Hurricane Ivan or Gilbert taught us anything, and Melissa, it's that a single storm can affect the entire island. Okay, maybe not so much Melissa, but you get the idea. Your offsite backup in Montego Bay doesn't help when the hurricane tracks straight across Jamaica. This is why cloud storage in US regions, for example, Virginia, Ohio, South Carolina, is so critical. Those data centers are over 1,500 miles from the Caribbean hurricane belt. So remember, 3, 2, 1. Now, preparation is everything. Let me walk you through what should happen before a storm event enters the Caribbean. Step 1, document everything. Every piece of hardware, every software license, every critical system. If you don't know what you have, guess what? You can't protect it. Step 2, test your backups. And I mean actually test them. Because I've seen businesses confidently say, yeah man, we're good. We have backups. Only to discover that those backups are corrupted or incomplete when they actually need them. An untested backup is just theory. Step 3, establish communication chains. Who calls whom? What are the backup phone numbers? What if the cell towers are down? Have a plan that doesn't rely on a single communication method. And step 4, review your insurance. Does your policy cover business interruption, data loss, equipment replacement? Read the fine print now, not after the storm. And lastly, physical preparation. Elevate servers off the floor. Waterproof containers for critical equipment. Unplug everything before the storm hits to avoid surge damage. And of course, these things seem pretty obvious, but at times we miss them because we're not prepared. Now, we've done all that work before the disaster. What do we do during the disaster? Now, when the hurricane goes from watch to warning, it's go time. It's go time. We gotta get going. First priority, 1 final backup sync. Get that last bit of digitized data to the cloud before connectivity goes down. The second, graceful shutdown. Don't just pull the plug. Properly shut down your servers and systems. A proper shutdown prevents data corruption. And third, if you have a generator, make sure it's fueled and ready, but also know when to shut even that down, because no equipment is worth risking a fire during a hurricane. And lastly, activate your communication protocols. Send that we're shutting down notification to staff, customers, and stakeholders. And most importantly, safety first. No data is worth a human life. Get yourself and your people to safety. The servers can wait. Now, what happens after the disaster? The storm has passed. Now the real work begins. Phase 1. assessment. 0 to 24 hours. Don't rush back to the office, of course. Survey the damage safely. Document everything for insurance. Check on your team members and staff first. Phase 2, triage. 24 to 48 hours. Prioritize what needs to come back first. Not everything is equally important. Focus on what keeps the business alive. Phase 3, activate, which should happen around 48 to 72 hours after the disaster. Start bringing your systems back online. Activate your cloud failover if needed. This is where your preparation pays off. And phase 4, restore. Normally happens around 72 hours and beyond. Again, remember we're making some assumptions here that you have power, connectivity, you have equipment, and so on. Full restoration of services. That's phase 4. Review what worked and what didn't. Update your disaster recovery plan based on the lessons learned. Use the checklist on screen. I have a few bullet points here. Verify backup, test restored, systems thoroughly, etc., to get an idea of what's going on and where you're at. Check building safety. Verify power stability, test network connectivity, confirm backup integrity, restore critical systems first, then communicate the status to stakeholders. Okay, now let's talk about how you actually access your data after disaster, which will go into different architectural patterns around what we can do before disaster to get ready once we've digitized our data. Now, the cloud-first approach is key. If your data is in, say, AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, you can access it from anywhere in the world with an internet connection. Because, of course, during a hurricane, buildings are torn down, so you may not have that physical office space. But if you have connectivity with Starlink, then you can begin to serve your customers depending on the nature of your business, right? Because again, your office might be flooded, but your data is sitting safely in Virginia. Consider setting up what they would call like a mobile command center. Now, this could be as simple as a laptop, a mobile hotspot, and a car charger, or as sophisticated as a fully equipped van with satellite connectivity. Identify alternate work sites in advance. A coffee shop with Wi-Fi, a family member's home in an unaffected area, a partner's company office. Now, here's something that people always forget. What's that? Credentials. You need to access your cloud accounts, but do you remember all your passwords? Especially after going through a high stress environment of a hurricane? Maybe not. Use a password manager, one that you can access from any device, assuming the device wasn't, gone with the hurricane. And set up a break glass account. These are emergency administrator accounts with passwords stored securely offline, maybe like in a waterproof safe for when your normal access methods fail. Now that we have some amount of recovery happening, we now need to mobilize our team. Disaster recovery isn't a one-person show. You need a team, and that team needs clear roles and responsibilities. At the top is your DR commander. Now, this is the person who makes the final calls. In the case of a disaster, you can't have decisions made by a committee. It's going to take way too long. Someone needs to be in charge. Now, under them, you can have specialized leads like your infrastructure lead, application lead, communications lead, and under them, you have your recovery teams. Now, an infrastructure lead will handle the hardware, networks, and connectivity. Application lead, this person is responsible for getting your software and services back online. And the communications lead, of course, manage all stakeholder updates. They handle the communication to your customers while everybody else is doing the work in the background. You can't have the same person working on the servers, talking to customers. It's just going to be extremely chaotic. Each lead then has their own recovery teams who execute the actual work. Now, here's a critical point: cross-training. Now, what if your infrastructure lead is stuck in another parish? What if they're dealing with their own home damage? I mean, it happens. Everyone needs a backup. So we have a disaster recovery for our business. We also have it for people as well. Business continuity. Everyone needs to know at least the basics of someone else's role. Document your team structure and digitize it, of course. Include personal phone numbers, not just work numbers. Include personal email addresses because, again, your corporate email server might be the thing that's down. Now, let's throw some acronyms across the screen. Don't worry, these are two of the most important concepts in disaster recovery, and they're actually pretty simple. RPO and RTO. Now, RPO, Recovery Point Objective, is how much data can you afford to lose? If your last backup was 24 hours ago and disaster strikes, you lose 24 hours of data. Therefore, your RPO is 24 hours. Now, is that acceptable? I don't know, maybe not. For some businesses though, losing even 1 hour of transactions is catastrophic. RTO, Recovery Time Objective. What does this answer? How long can you afford to be down? If your systems are offline, how many hours or days before the business impact becomes critical? Before customers leave? Before you miss payroll? Look at the timeline on the screen. The disaster happens. Everyone to the left of the point represents potential data loss. That's your RPO. Everything to the right represents downtime until you're back online. That's your RTO. Here's a business reality. Smaller RPO and RTO means more investment. Near zero data loss and instant failover is possible. It is, but it costs significantly more than daily backups with a 24-hour recovery window. Your job is to find the right balance for your business. Now, there's been a lot of debate over the years around cloud versus on-premises for disaster recovery. This has been an eternal debate. Roman, cloud or on-prem? Cloud is expensive. Digital has a cloud. Can I go with that one? Flow has a cloud. Can I go with that one? Why do I have to go to Google? Why do I have to go to Azure? Lots of questions. Now, let's unpack them a little bit. Now, on-premises gives you full control, right? Your data is physically in your hands. Potentially lower ongoing costs if you have the expertise in-house. And for some industries, there are compliance requirements that mandate on-premises storage because your data can't leave, say for instance, it can't leave Jamaica, right? So we understand that. But here's the downside. You own all the risk, right? If a hurricane destroys your server room, guess what, buddy? That's your problem. You need to maintain hardware, handle updates, manage security, all while running your actual business. Now, the cloud gives you what we consider geographic distribution. It has geographic distribution built in. Your data can be in Virginia, Ohio, and Oregon all simultaneously, of course, assuming that you don't have a compliance requirement to have your data stored physically in Jamaica, right? And for most businesses that I know, there isn't that hard rule to say, hey, your data can't leave the island. So using the cloud gives you that geographic distribution. And you get enterprise-grade security maintained by companies whose entire business is keeping your data safe. And guess what? You pay for what you use, and you can scale instantly. The downside, though, is there are ongoing subscription costs, and if you don't have guardrails in place, costs can get out of control. There's also the dependence on internet connectivity. And yes, you're trusting a third party with your data. But my recommendation for most Jamaican businesses, for you business owners and executives and IT leaders listening in, is to employ a hybrid approach. Keep critical active workloads where they make sense, but ensure your disaster recovery and backups are in the cloud, specifically in US regions outside the hurricane belt. I do know that Digicel has a tier 3 data center that you can potentially use, which should be okay for handling most hurricanes. I don't think the hurricane hit Kingston or where they have their data center, so I don't think they were truly tested, but you can explore them as an option. But not only hurricane, there's also earthquake, right? Where that can happen at any point in time, the building shake, and things just happen, right? Anywho, the thinking here is do what makes sense for your business, your workloads, your data, your application, and your customers. That's the takeaway. Cloud versus on-prem, either can work, both can work together, all depends on the business. Now, let's talk specific cloud options. Now, there are 3 major players, and I did talk about Digicel and Flow because I do know that they offer business solutions as well, so you can talk to them. I don't know what their latest package is or what their packages are right now, but they're also an option. But let us focus on these 3 major cloud providers, right? Public cloud providers. Now, the 3 major players here are excellent choices, and the best, quote unquote, the best one depends on your specific situation. So let's take, for instance, AWS. They are the largest and most mature cloud platform. I used to work with them, I know. For disaster recovery purposes, you're looking at US East Virginia or US East Ohio regions. Key services include S3 for storage, EC2 for compute, and their backup and disaster recovery services. Now, beside AWS, there's Microsoft. And if you're already running a Microsoft shop, running, say, Office 365, Windows Server, SQL Server, Azure integrates beautifully. Their US East region is in Virginia, and Azure Site Recovery is specifically designed for disaster recovery scenarios. And of course, there is the best cloud, because anyway. Google Cloud Platform, and I'm biased because that's what I work on every day. Excellent for data analytics and machine learning workloads, and of course AI with Gemini. US East regions in South Carolina and Virginia are good options. Their cloud storage is extremely cost effective for backup purposes. I've seen customers move artifacts and objects from S3 into Google Cloud Storage. Now, all 3 offer pay-as-you-go pricing, which is perfect for disaster recovery. You're not paying for a hot standby sitting idle. You can spin up resources only when you need them. When choosing though, consider this. What expertise does your team have? What are you already using? What are your compliance requirements? And importantly, for Jamaica, which providers have local partners who can support you? Now let's get into some technical patterns. There are 4 main approaches to DR architecture, each with different trade-offs. The first pattern, easy, backup and restore. This is the simplest and cheapest. You regularly back up your data, the digitized data, to the cloud, and if disaster strikes, you restore. Simple. RTO could be hours to days. RPO depends on your backup frequency. Now, this is fine for non-critical systems or small businesses just getting started with DR. Pattern 2. This is what we call the pilot light. Think of it like keeping a pilot light burning on a gas stove. Your core database is replicated to the cloud and always running, but your application servers are off. Now, in a disaster, you spin up the application layer quickly because guess what? Your data is already there. RTO in hours, RPO in minutes. Then we have warm standby, which is a scaled down but fully functional copy of your environment that is always running in the cloud. When disaster hits, you scale it up and you redirect traffic. RTO in minutes, RPO in seconds. This is where most business critical applications should be. And lastly, we have the multi-site active. Now this is the gold standard if you can afford it. You have pretty much 2 fully functional operational environments running simultaneously, load balance across both. If one fails, the other one handles everything without missing a beat. Boom. Near zero RTO and RPO, but also the most expensive and complex. So how do you choose? Let me simplify it with a decision matrix. If you're a small business, or these are development and test systems, and you can tolerate days of downtime, start with backup and restore. Get the basics right first. Now, if you're a small to medium business with some tolerance for downtime, but you need faster recovery, pilot light, that's your option right there. That's your sweet spot. Now, if these are, or if you have business critical systems where hours of downtime would cause serious damage, then you want to explore warm standby. But if you have mission critical and any downtime is unacceptable, of course, multi-site active. For most Jamaican businesses, I recommend what you see here. A hybrid architecture with your primary site in Jamaica, of course, and a pilot light or warm standby in, say, a US East Cloud region. Now, look at these numbers at the bottom. 1,500 miles from the hurricane zone, less than 50 millisecond latency to US East, and a target failover time of 15 minutes for a properly configured system. That's what you would get if you were to employ this architecture. But Ramon, what about DNS? Of course, I haven't forgotten DNS. Now, this slide might be the most practical one in the entire presentation. Let's talk about how your customers actually reach your services during a disaster, right? We all know DNS. DNS is how your company.com translates to your actual servers in the back. With global DNS servers from AWS like AWS Route 53, Google Cloud DNS or Cloudflare, you can set up automatic failover. Now, here's how it works. All right. The DNS provider constantly checks if your Jamaica site, if your primary Jamaica site is healthy. Now remember, Jamaica is primary, the cloud is the backup, right? If it detects that your site is down, which would happen in a hurricane, it would automatically redirect all your traffic to your US cloud backup. No manual intervention needed, and this will typically happen within 30 to 60 seconds. So if you have an external facing business where customers can make and request orders, right? Say it's an e-commerce site, then having a backup in the cloud would really help here, because even though the winds are blowing and there's also flooding happening in Jamaica, your international customers are now being served not from the Jamaica side, because this is now down because of the hurricane or the earthquake or the natural disaster. They're now being served from what's in the cloud, right? But DNS failover only works if you can get online to manage things. That's where your connectivity strategy comes in. Your regular fiber or cable internet, like through Digitizing, is very important. That's going to be your primary. This will likely be the first to go down actually, and the last to come back up, unfortunately. Secondary is your LTE and 5G cellular, which can work off battery or generator power. This often recovers faster than fixed line internet, but yeah, it will vary. And lastly, which I know everyone might be familiar with by now, is satellite, which you can employ in an emergency, and this is what we put in the emergency tier. So we have the active, standby, and emergency, right? Satellite options are like your Starlink, right? Because of course, it would be hard to get anything at the time based on what's going on. And we've seen where Starlink has come to the rescue here in Jamaica. Now, there's an optional one, but that's more on the enterprise side, which is a VSAT satellite. Now, my strong recommendation here is, which we have seen, is pre-order a Starlink kit. Keep it stored safely. You might have to pay a little over $120 per month, but when everything else is down and you need to coordinate your recovery, it's worth every penny. Just keep it safe and don't let it blow away in the hurricane. Let's talk a little bit about the recovery tiers now. Now, not all systems are created equal, and your recovery should reflect that. Let's define these recovery tiers. We have three here: mission critical, business essential, and non-critical, right? Tier 1, critical. Now, these are your mission critical systems. I think we spoke about them earlier a little bit. Your RTO here should be under 1 hour, RPO near 0. What falls here? Your core business applications, like your financial systems, because you need to process transactions, customer-facing services, because again, that's your revenue, and authentication systems, because without logging capability, nothing else works. Tier 2, this is your important tier: email, internal applications, development environments. Tier 3 is standard. In this tier, RTO of about 24 to 72 hours is okay, and RPO of 24 hours is fine. This is your archives, historical data, training systems, important stuff, but not urgent. But here's the key, people. You probably can't afford to make everything tier 1. Too expensive and too complex. So be strategic. Be honest about what is truly critical versus what just feels. So of course, you'd have to go through your systems and your data and do an audit and tag things and say, okay, this is critical, this is important, and this is not so important. And we spoke about this before. Test your DR plan. It's uncomfortable, but a disaster recovery plan that hasn't been tested is just a wish list. You need 3 types of testing. First, you have the tabletop exercise. The second, you have a functional test. And lastly, full-scale drill. Very self-explanatory, right? Your tabletop exercise is where you gather your team in a conference room and you walk through the scenarios. Okay, guys, hurricane is 48 hours out. What do we do? Or the office is flooded. What's step one? What's that playbook? No actual systems are touched, but you test your thinking and your process. Now, sorry, that was still top, not full scale drill. Now, for functional testing, actually restore from backups. Spin up your DR environment, verify that your applications work, but do this though, folks. Do this in a controlled way, because you don't want to create another disaster because you were testing for a disaster, right? And lastly, full scale drill. This is something that should be done at least once annually. Declare a mock disaster. Activate your DR site for real. Pretend that Jamaica is now down. Run the business from your backup environment for like a day. It is expensive and it's disruptive, so of course don't do it during Christmas time. Bad idea. But it's the only way to know if your plan actually works, right? Use the checklist on the screen here. You can take a screenshot for your test. Now, costs. Okay, Ramon, we've talked about all these options, cost, and we're almost done. Let's talk about money, because ultimately that's what business decisions come down to. Ramon, these are all nice to have, but in Jamaica we can't afford it. Sorry. First, understand your downtime costs. Lost revenue. Calculate your average revenue per hour, multiply by your expected downtime. Employee productivity. Your staff is getting paid to sit around in a downtime, right? Because hello, and you have to pay them still, because hey, yes, we know hurricane came, but I mean, it's still a work day. We don't have anything to do, but you still have to pay us, right? Customer impact. Think about penalties because of SLAs, because you might have customers who leave due to unavailability of your service and they never come back. Compliance and legal stuff. So again, just understand your downtime costs from external customers, the internal customers, and stakeholders. Now, look at your DR investment. All right. Cloud storage runs about 2 to 10 cents per gigabyte per month. Backup software is about 50 to 500, and we're talking about USD here, per server per month, depending on the features. And a DR site costs 100% of primary your DR site costs 100% of primary for hot standby, 50% for warm, 20% for cool, right? And in testing, training, and initial planning and consulting. Adding costs for testing, training, and planning. So here's the ROI calculation that matters. This bullet point here at the bottom. If your hourly downtime costs exceeds your monthly DR investment, the math is simple. Invest in DR. Let me say it again. If your hourly downtime costs exceeds your monthly DR investment, the math is simple. Invest in DR. Most businesses find that DR pays for itself after preventing just one significant event. And in Jamaica, with hurricane season every single year, that incident isn't a question of if, but when. Now, let's wrap up here with a 30-day action plan. Week 1, assess. Inventory all your data and systems. Identify what's critical or what's truly critical. Audit your current backup status, because you might be surprised at what you find or don't find. Week 2, plan. Define your RTO and RPO targets for different tiers. Select your cloud strategy, AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. Document your procedures in writing, not in your head, please, not in your head. in a document that anyone, in a document, so take from here, put that document that anyone on your team can follow. Week 3, we're going to implement. We're going to get stuff done, right? Deploy your backup solutions, configure cloud replication, train your team. Train your team. Everyone needs to know their role, not just the IT department. Get that runbook up and running, right? And of course, we spoke about this. Test. Run restoration tests. Conduct a tabletop exercise. Refine your plan based on what you learn. Document the gaps and fix them. The best time to prepare was yesterday. The second best time is now. Now let me leave you with 5 key takeaways. 1. Digitize everything. 2. Follow the 3-2-1 backup rule religiously. 3. Prepare before, document during, act decisively after. 4. Cloud-based disaster recovery provides geographic resiliency. And 5. Test your plan. An untested plan is just hope. And remember, it's not if a disaster will happen, it's about when. The question is simply this: will you be ready? Thank you for your time today and attention. I'm happy to connect with anyone here on LinkedIn. Feel free to message me. I'll pass on my contact details to the host and she will share them. Apologies for not being there, but I do hope that this was beneficial to you and your team. A lot to unpack, so many more conversations to be had, but this framework will allow you and your IT department and your company to get ready when disaster strikes. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye for now.